On the day of my wedding to William Thompson, Silicon Valley's golden boy, his college classmate Grace Young got into a car crash. He was about to throw down his wedding band and run out when I grabbed his hand hard. I leaned in and whispered that if he walked out that door, my family would instantly pull our venture capital funding from his tech startup. If we finished the ceremony today, the funding would go through. If he dared to leave, I would have him kicked out of his CEO seat by tomorrow morning. With a face of pure ice, he forced himself to stand by my side and finish the ceremony. But right after, news came from the hospital. Grace hadn't survived. William didn't say a single word. 3 months later, he took me to a private charity gala at a vineyard in Napa Valley. The moment I turned my back, he drugged my champagne and handed me over to his corrupt business partner, Mark Vance. Mark took compromising photos and videos of me and sent them straight to William. William just sat on the plush leather sofa in the VIP lounge, laughing. "She's the one who forced me to marry her," he sneered. "This is her karma. Call the press. Tell them she cheated on me, got blackmailed, and died in a tragic accident." As my consciousness faded, the brutal truth finally hit me. William hated me. He blamed me for taking away his chance to save his precious Grace. When I opened my eyes again, William was holding the diamond wedding band, about to slide it onto my finger. I smiled. I turned my head, pulled out my phone, and called Arthur Blackwood. I asked him if he wanted to be my groom instead. By the power vested in me, the groom may now kiss the bride. The priest's voice was still echoing in my ears, but William's expression had turned incredibly strange. "Grace got into a car accident," he muttered. He hadn't even picked up the phone that was buzzing in his pocket yet. He just knew she was in trouble. Looking at the raw panic in his eyes, my heart felt like it had been plunged into freezing water. The memories of my past life rushed back like a tidal wave. The terrifying helplessness of being drugged. The rough, disgusting hands of Mark Vance tearing at my bridal gown. William's face as he sat on the sofa, laughing and saying I deserved it. The humiliating video, and the bone-chilling wind as I fell from the vineyard balcony. William's hands trembled as he finally answered the call. "Grace, hold on. I'm coming. I'll be right there." Hanging up, William shook off my hand, the hand that was supposed to receive the ring. "And Grace is in trouble. I have to go to her right now. Be reasonable. This is a matter of life and death." I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. Hard. The sharp smack echoed through the grand cathedral. The guests instantly fell dead silent. He cupped his cheek, his eyes wide with disbelief. "And, what the hell is wrong with you?" Seeing the disgust and self-righteousness in his eyes, I knew. He had regressed too. Just like me. "You're right," I said, my voice dead calm. "I'm not going to make a scene." I slowly took off my own engagement ring. In front of hundreds of high society guests, I tossed it directly into the nearby champagne tower. The crystal glasses clinked and shattered. "The wedding is off. Get the hell out." The crowd erupted into whispers. William stood frozen, then knitted his brows, looking at me like I was just throwing a childish tantrum. "And don't play games right now. Grace is waiting for me at the ER. I'll explain everything when I get back." He turned to leave. I stepped in front of him, blocking his path. "No need to explain. If you walk out, you walk out. But let's make one thing clear to everyone here. You are walking out on me. I didn't kick you out." Without even looking back, he threw a loud statement to the crowd. "And wants to cancel the wedding. I respect her decision." Then he rushed out of the cathedral. His parents' faces turned instantly green. They swarmed me, shouting accusations. And William left to save a life. How can you be so incredibly selfish? You're throwing a fit like this before you're even officially married? How are the two of you supposed to build a life together? My parents instantly flared up, stepping forward to defend me. I held my dad's arm and shook my head, signaling him to stop. William's parents took my silence as submission. "Figure it out yourselves," his father huffed, leading their guests toward the exit. The massive venue emptied out by half in minutes. The remaining guests were whispering and pointing at me. My dad was shaking with rage, wanting to chase them down for an explanation. I held him back, pulled out my phone, and dialed a number I hadn't called in a very long time. "Arthur," I said when the line connected. "When you said you wanted to marry me last time, did you mean it? As long as I'm breathing, and always. I'm short of a groom at my wedding right now. How fast can you get here?" 15 minutes. I hung up, looking up at my shocked parents, and then down at the wedding ring resting at the bottom of a champagne glass. While waiting, I whispered to my dad, telling him to immediately gather all the evidence of William embezzling company funds. "Once you have it, email it directly to the board of directors and the SEC," I instructed. Since he wanted to save his darling Grace so badly, he could pay for it with his CEO title. Arthur arrived even faster than promised. He was wearing a bespoke black suit, with a light dusting of snow on his shoulders. The moment he stepped through the heavy oak doors, every eye in the room locked onto him. He walked straight to me and handed me a black velvet box with his long, elegant fingers. I happened to carry a ring with me. The size should be perfect. I took the box and opened it. The ring inside was exactly my style, and when I slid it on, it fit perfectly. Are you sure about this, Arthur? If you marry me, you and William will be sworn enemies in the business world. He took my hand without a second thought. His voice was deep, warm, and steady. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. The priest recovered quickly, clearing his throat and announcing that the ceremony would proceed. The remaining guests went from shocked murmurs to stunned silence, which quickly erupted into thunderous applause. As Arthur and I exchanged rings, he leaned down and pressed a gentle, feather-like kiss against my lips. And from this day on, I'll protect you. Feeling the warmth of his palm, the anxiety that had gripped my chest for 2 lifetimes finally dissolved. The moment the ceremony ended, my phone vibrated like crazy. It was a text from William on Snapchat. And I know you're just doing this to get back at me. Hiring an actor to play your groom? Really? Apologize to me right now, and I might consider coming back to finish the wedding later tonight. I figured his assistant, who had stayed behind, must have sent him photos of me and Arthur. I didn't reply. I just locked my screen. A second later, my phone rang. It was him. His voice was dripping with sarcasm. And, you really are desperate to get me back, aren't you? Hiring some random guy to play a role? You think this is funny? Before I could speak, Grace's weak, trembling voice came through the receiver in the background. William, don't blame Anne. She probably just loves you too much. She acted on impulse. Oh, by the way, I just asked the nurse. She said the brake lines on my car looked really strange, like someone tampered with them. William's fury instantly boiled over the line. I could practically feel his rage through the screen. And, was it you? Are you so jealous of Grace that you tried to murder her? Hearing this utterly ridiculous accusation, I laughed out loud. I don't have the time or the interest to touch her cheap car, William. Believe what you want. Stop lying. Why would Grace accuse you if it wasn't true? He was completely deaf to reason. I didn't want to waste my breath, so I hung up and blocked his number on everything. Right after I blocked him, a text from an unknown number popped up. If you want my forgiveness, come to the hospital, get on your knees and apologize to Grace. And you're going to sign over your corneas to her. She might go blind. Do it, or I'm calling the police and throwing you in federal prison. I stared at the text, then slid my phone over to Arthur. Arthur glanced at the screen, and his eyes instantly turned predatory and cold. Do you want me to handle this? I shook my head, raising my glass of champagne to clink against his. No. I want to ruin him myself. That evening, Arthur drove me back to my estate. The moment we pulled into the driveway, we saw William blocking the gates. He still smelled of hospital disinfectant, and his eyes were bloodshot. Seeing me get out of Arthur's SUV, he charged at me, reaching out to grab my arm. Arthur stepped in front of me like a wall, catching William's wrist and twisting it slightly. William groaned in pain. And, you're actually serious about this guy? He ripped his hand away from Arthur, glaring at me with disbelief. I leaned against the car door, looking at his indignant face. It was pathetic. Of course I am. Did you honestly think my world revolved around you? And let me make this clear. Whatever happened to Grace's eyes has nothing to do with me. Stop pointing fingers. William's face turned purple. He pointed at me, shaking. Who else could it be? Who else hates Grace? I'm telling you, and you're going to pay for her medical treatment, or I'll destroy you. He pulled out his phone, threatening to call the cops. I have security footage of you near her car. If you don't comply, I'm sending you to jail. I didn't feel like playing his games. I unlocked my phone and dialed 911 myself. Yes, officer? I'd like to report a stalker trespassing on my private property and harassing me. Please send a patrol car. William gasped, stunned by my move, then let out a cold laugh. Good. Let the cops come. Let's see who they arrest. The police arrived within minutes. William rushed over to them immediately, shoving a flash drive into the deputy's hand. Officer, I want to report a felony. This woman cut the brakes on my friend's car, causing an accident that might leave her blind. The evidence is right here. The deputy took the flash drive and looked at me. I pulled out a tablet from my bag, showing the security logs of my company's office from that day, along with signed affidavits from my executive team. This is my alibi. I was in a board meeting all day. The video he has is a deepfake. I welcome a forensic audit. The deputy carefully reviewed my documents, made a quick call to verify the security company's logs, and turned to William with a stern look. Mr. Thompson, this footage you provided has clear signs of digital manipulation. Filing a false police report is a serious crime. William's face drained of color. That's impossible. Her alibi must be forged. She wanted to kill Grace. She's capable of anything. I didn't want to watch his manic episode anymore. I nodded politely to the officers. Thank you, officers. I will be pressing charges for harassment and defamation. Even after the police ordered him to leave the perimeter, William lingered near the edge of the street, staring at me with venomous eyes. And I know you remember, he whispered, stepping closer. I know you regress too. I know I wronged you in the past life, but Grace is innocent. Give her the medical settlement. If you do, I'll take the fall for the embezzlement charges. I won't drag your father, David, into this deal. Hearing him twist the truth so effortlessly, I laughed in his face. I already sent the embezzlement files to the SEC, William. You should worry about your own skin. William's face went completely white. Before he could speak, his phone rang. He picked it up. Within seconds, his hands were shaking so hard he almost dropped the device. William stood frozen like a statue. His assistant was screaming through the speaker, but William's hands were trembling so violently he couldn't even speak. Impossible. I wiped all the digital footprints. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with madness and pure, unadulterated hatred. And you set me up. He lunged at me again. Arthur stepped in, delivering a brutal kick straight to William's stomach. William stumbled back and fell hard onto the snow-covered driveway, looking utterly pathetic. You embezzled the money yourself, William. Don't blame me for your own greed, I said, walking up to him and looking down at his miserable state. When you threw me to your business partner in our past life, did you ever stop to think about this day? William's pupils dilated. The remaining color drained from his face. You really did come back. Suddenly, he started laughing. It was a manic, hysterical laugh that brought tears to his eyes. Fine. Great. Just you wait, and this isn't over. He scrambled to his feet and stumbled away into the dark, leaving his buzzing phone on the ground. I picked it up. The screen was lit up with a text from Grace on Snapchat. William, the doctor said without a transplant, I'll never see again. I'm so scared. Please don't blame Anne. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have been in your life. I stared at the screen, took a screenshot of the text, and tossed the phone into the trash can. Arthur walked over, draping his wool coat over my shoulders. Are you cold? Let's go inside. I shook my head, pulling out my own phone to text my PR director. Release the files on William's embezzlement and his arrest warrant for filing a false police report. Make it trend. Within 10 minutes, the internet exploded. Tech founder embezzlement trends. William Thompson Harris's ex trends. I scrolled through the comments on ins, watching the internet turn on him, calling him the ultimate trash. I couldn't help but smirk. The next morning, my dad called me, his voice tight with anxiety. And look at the stock market. William just hosted a live stream. He's claiming I forced him to embezzle the funds, and he's showing fake wire transfers to our family accounts. My heart sank. I checked the market. Our family company's stock was tanking, dropping fast. Another hashtag was trending, David Martinez embezzlement. Arthur frowned beside me, pulling out his phone to make some calls, but I stopped him. Don't worry. I was waiting for him to make this move. I opened William's live stream on YouTube. He was dressed in a sleek suit, looking perfectly remorseful, crying to the camera. I was young and stupid. David Martinez coerced me into doing it. All the money went into their offshore accounts. I am willing to cooperate with the feds. I just want to do the right thing. Grace was sitting next to him, her eyes bandaged, bowing slightly to the camera in a frail voice. I know people might not believe us, but William is a good man. He was forced. Please don't hate him. Watching their little performance, I sneered and made a quick call to our legal contact at the SEC. After hanging up, I waved a flash drive in front of Arthur. This contains the real paper trail of William and Grace moving the funds to their own accounts, along with audio recordings of them planning to drain my family's company 6 months ago. Arthur raised an eyebrow, a proud smile playing on his lips as he ruffled my hair. You're always 3 steps ahead, aren't you? I smiled back. But before I could speak, the front doorbell rang. I opened it to find 2 federal agents standing there, badges in hand. And Martinez? We're with the SEC. We have a warrant to bring you in for questioning regarding your father's alleged financial fraud. The iron door of the SEC's regional field office was heavy, closing with a dull, final thud that echoed through the quiet corridor. I sat in the wide leather chair opposite the 2 federal agents. The air was sterile, smelling of old paper, high-end desk varnish, and chemical soap. Behind the glass wall of the observation room, Arthur stood, his arms crossed, his tall frame clad in a tailored black overcoat. He didn't look worried, his eyes carried a quiet, freezing certainty that made the entire precinct feel small. Miss Martinez, the lead agent, a stern, gray-haired investigator named Davis, said as he opened a thick folder of documents. We've reviewed the digital logs and the bank statements provided by William Thompson during his live stream. The wire transfers show $32 million flowing from Thompson Tech's corporate accounts directly into your father's private offshore holdings in the Cayman Islands. He leaned forward, his eyes sharp. These transactions carry your father's encrypted digital signature. Do you have an explanation for this? I didn't panic. I didn't cry. Slowly, deliberately, I pulled the silver flash drive from my bag and slid it across the polished desk. Those wire transfers are high-quality digital forgeries, Agent Davis, I said. My voice calm, even and entirely conversational. Specifically, they were generated using a legacy version of Advanced Logistics accounting software, a version that was retired 2 years ago, but is still used on Thompson Tech's private internal server. I tapped the flash drive. Inside, you will find the complete forensic audit of those accounts. The real destination for those $32 million wasn't my father's holdings. The money was routed through a series of shell companies in Panama before being converted into anonymous cryptocurrency wallets registered under the legal names of William Thompson and Grace Young. Agent Davis's eyebrows shot up. He pulled a tablet from his desk, plugged in the flash drive, and began to scan the files. Furthermore, I continued, we have the metadata from the digital signature. It was applied last Tuesday at 2:15 a.m. from William's personal laptop, IP address. Verified at the Westin hotel room where he was staying with Grace. My father was in a public board meeting with 40 executives at that exact hour. As the files loaded, showing the complete, step-by-step planning of the embezzlement, the look of righteous authority on Agent Davis's face completely evaporated. He looked at the screen, then at me, realizing that he had been weaponized by a desperate criminal. This is grand larceny, Miss Martinez, the agent whispered, his face turning pale. And manufacturing false evidence to a federal agency. Yes, I said, standing up and smoothing out my blazer. It is. And I want him prosecuted to the absolute limit of the law. I walked out of the glass room, Arthur immediately wrapping his hand around mine, his palm warm, dry, and steady. Is it done? And he asked softly. It's done, I said, looking out the window toward the city skyline. Let's go. Back to our wedding dinner. The corporate headquarters of Thompson Tech was a tower of blue-tinted glass in the center of Silicon Valley. At 9 a.m. the next morning, William was sitting in his executive office, his tie undone, drinking champagne as he watched our family's stock price drop on his monitors. He was smiling, a smug, triumphant look on his face, waiting for the news of my father's arrest. Did they bring her in? William asked, turning to his assistant who was busy reviewing the media metrics. Yes, sir, the assistant said, his voice trembling slightly. The feds took Anne in for questioning last night. But, sir, we have a problem. Before the assistant could explain, the heavy oak doors of the office were thrown open with a violent force. 6 uniformed federal marshals and 4 SEC investigators strode into the room, their weapons drawn, their badges held high. William Thompson? The lead marshal barked, his voice flat as iron. You are under arrest for grand corporate embezzlement, wire fraud, and manufacturing false evidence to a federal agency. What? No, that's a mistake. William screamed, his champagne glass clattering onto the mahogany desk, spilling the sparkling liquid over his files. David Martinez is the one who stole the money. I gave you the wire transfers. The wire transfers were proven to be high-quality digital forgeries generated from your personal laptop, Mr. Thompson, the marshal said, stepping forward and clicking the heavy metal handcuffs around his wrists. And we have a warrant to seize all corporate and personal assets of Thompson Tech, effective immediately. No. Grace, save me. William shrieked, his face turning a violent pasty green as he was dragged out of his executive office, past the silent, whispering employees who were already packing their things. The news of his arrest hit the financial channels within 10 minutes. The stock of Thompson Tech plummeted by 90%, and by noon the board of directors had officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The golden boy of Silicon Valley had turned into a convicted felon in a single morning. But the real horror was happening at the hospital. Grace stood in the private ward, her eyes bandaged, her fingers clutching a medical brochure as her lawyer ran into the room. Grace, we have to go, the lawyer whispered, his voice frantic. The court has frozen all of William's personal bank accounts. The private clinic has canceled your surgery because the credit card was declined. They're transferring you to a public ward. What? Grace shrieked, her voice rising to a high-pitched hysterical whine. But my eyes. The transplant is scheduled for tomorrow. William promised me he would pay for it. William is in federal custody, Grace, the lawyer said, his face pale. And the police are on their way here. The guy you hired to cut your brake lines, he just signed a confession at the precinct. He said you paid him $10,000 to stage the accident to keep William from marrying Anne. The paper brochure slipped from Grace's fingers, drifting uselessly onto the linoleum floor. The innocent, fragile first love was revealed to be a cold, calculating accomplice who had literally risked her own life just to keep her claws in the Thompson family fortune. 6 months later, the private vineyard in Napa Valley was bathed in a warm, golden autumn light. The air was cool, smelling of fresh pine, baked earth, and expensive oak wood. It was the anniversary of our merger celebration. Arthur and I stood on the wide outdoor deck of the winery, looking out over the sprawling valleys. I was wearing a stunning tailored white silk gown, my posture relaxed, my face carrying a quiet, fierce confidence. My family's firm had officially merged with the Blackwood Group, creating the most powerful corporate alliance in the state. My father, David, stood beside us, his chest puffed out with a genuine quiet pride as he raised his glass to clink against mine. "You've built an empire," and he whispered, his eyes shining with emotion. "Your late mother would be so proud." "We built it together, Dad," I said with a smile. Suddenly, a commotion near the entrance of the courtyard drew everyone's attention. Two figures had pushed past the security guards. It was William and Grace. They looked completely out of place among the elegant, sun-drenched crowd. William was wearing a cheap, wrinkled suit he had bought after his release on bail, his face hollow, pale, and covered in rough stubble. Grace's eyes were covered in a thick gray medical patch, her hand clutching his sleeve like a delicate, rotting vine. They had been reduced to living in a cheap rental, their reputation entirely ruined, their assets liquidated to pay for his civil restitution. When William saw me, his jaw slowly dropped. He stared at my tailored gown, my radiant skin, and the powerful, elegant husband standing beside me. He pushed past the security guards, his hands shaking as he fell directly onto his knees on the wooden deck in front of me. And please," he sobbed, his head hanging low, his tears wetting the clean wood. "I was wrong. I was so blind. Grace, she was a trap. She cut her own brake lines. She lied to me. I realized you were the only one who ever truly loved me. The company, the money, the house. I'll give you everything. Just let's start over." "Yes," and Grace whimpered, her voice sounding small, pathetic, and entirely broken. "I'm sorry. I was just jealous. William is yours. I won't ever bother you again. Please, tell your father to drop the civil lawsuits." I looked down at the two of them kneeling on the deck, the husband who had drugged me and handed me over to his partner, and the mistress who had faked an accident to steal my life. I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no hatred, not even a trace of the old burning resentment. "This is your karma, William," I said, my voice quiet, even, and carrying a freezing, absolute finality. "Enjoy your prison sentence." I turned to Arthur, offering him my arm. "Let's go back inside, Arthur. The air out here is getting a bit heavy." "Of course, Anne," Arthur said, his eyes shining with absolute love. We walked back into the grand hall, the heavy oak doors closing behind us, cutting off their weeping and frantic screams of "Anne" from behind us. The plane lifted off into the cloudless, brilliant blue sky, and as I looked out at the wide, golden horizon, I knew that our new life was finally ours too. Right, free of the silence, free of the scars, and filled with a quiet, beautiful light that would never fade.